What if we didn't know what we think we know?
People that are trendsetters that are making a difference in the world.
What is this TDOS Syndrome? Is it TDOS Syndrome?
TDOS Syndrome. Walked in my doctor's office 11 years ago and he said to me, if you don't do something drastically different today, you're never going to meet your grandkids.
It's toxicity, deficiency, combining, believe it or not, combining to cause what? Every disease statistic is completely out of control. Who wants to take a guess what's the #1 killer in the United States? #1 killer in North America is stress. We got to do something different. We have to have a new conversation or we're going to find ourselves in exactly the same place we are, only it's going to get worse and worse and worse and worse. T is for toxicity, the D is for deficiency, the O is for being overweight, and the S is for stress. And those 4 cofactors, they're deadly enough on their own. But where it became a syndrome for me was when I realized there was an interconnectivity between those 4 factors that was allowing them to magnify their impact. How much worse do you think it can get?
It's a little bit like what the tobacco companies did when the tide started to turn against them.
Imagine legions of the sick marching on the hospitals when there won't be enough drugs, there won't be enough beds, and there won't be enough doctors. Our drinking water, on average, has anywhere between 300 and 500 chemicals in it. We're now using 10,000 chemicals in the production of food. Less than 500 have ever been tested for what they do to us as human beings. These chemicals are altering our hormones and reprogramming our bodies to gain weight. I'm now breathing in the fumes from the coal-fired plants in China from 7 to 10 days ago. No human being or food supply anywhere, no matter how remote, is immune to being contaminated. An Eskimo mother's breast milk, when it was tested, it contained such high levels of PCBs and mercury that it would be categorized as hazardous waste by the EPA. That's at the North Pole.
Nobody's going to be cleaning up the planet because it is now ubiquitous. It's everywhere, as you mentioned. And there's not enough money to clean up anywhere close to even a percentage of the planet.
You think you can eat yourself into wellness? Food will never be enough again, period. Period.
What the body does, it actually takes the toxin and stuffs it in a fat cell. And no amount of exercise and no amount of regular dieting will remove the toxins. They've measured athletes in sweat. There's no toxins being removed in exercise at all. We've got 70% of America overweight. I do not believe all of those people are not trying to diet and aren't exercising. That's a bunch of bull.
Well, they just did a study on obese children, and they found that the majority of those children actually were suffering from rickets and scurvy, which are diseases of malnutrition. For the first time in the history of the world this year, more children will die of obesity than starvation. The food companies have spent almost $1 billion trying to determine how they can get us to eat more. They have created something called the bliss point. And what they did, they actually did brain scans on children and adults, and they found there was a point where the combination of salt, sugar, and fat stimulated but didn't fill you up. And you know what the model was that they used to determine this in the brain scan? They had a model that they based it on. Cocaine addicts.
It's a little bit like what the tobacco companies did when the tide started to turn against them.
There was one study that said the thought of going on a diet raises your stress and your cortisol in the human body.
You know, stress is big business, toxicity is big business, nutritional deficiency is big business. This is what we've been talking about, is that it's a case of the emperor's new clothes. Everyone knows all this stuff is going on. America's getting heavier and heavier. People are feeling more and more fatigued. People are more and more stressed. And the overall satisfaction with life is dwindling, and nobody seems able to pinpoint it, and that's the problem. People are trying to pinpoint it instead of admitting that there's several factors at play and that they're all interconnected.
Revolutionary new preventative interventional technologies that involve things like nutritional fasting. Now, before you go sideways, what do you mean fasting? It's been proven in study after study that caloric restriction with intermittent fasting is one of the greatest strategies absolutely to positively live healthier longer.
But it's something that's so difficult to do because our foods are so nutritionally bankrupt that when you reduce the calories to the point where the body would naturally begin to detoxify itself, the body basically goes into starvation mode and holds on to the fat. Because you don't have the nutrients, you don't have what I call toxin hunters that literally can go in and pull these toxins apart, make them water soluble so they can pass out to the liver and the kidneys.
And just because it wasn't invented, just because you didn't know it was available, doesn't mean it wasn't possible. He's my only friend that has at his house, pet zebras and giraffes. He told me the story. He was out in his garden about 12 years ago, and he gets bitten on the top of his foot, right here on his arch, by something called a brown recluse spider. You all familiar with those? They walked in his hospital room and said, if we're gonna save you, we need to amputate your foot today. Like, not next week, but today. You know, at that point, he'd been formulating for 25 years. He'd done 2,300 nutritional formulas for over 650 companies. And he invented, at that point, the precursor to what this new nutritional technology has become 12 years later. Not only did he save his foot, he lost about 45 pounds.
The only place you can find the minerals that existed 100 or 1,000 or even a million years ago is in a mine where they have been pressed from plant food into peat.
They're in mines, that's it. You're not gonna go and get it out in eastern Colorado and dig it up in the soil anymore. Is there a way that I could live healthier longer? That I could live into what's called my golden years, but not be so crippled? Big study in USA Today a few weeks ago said, yeah, we're living longer, but we're living sicker. That's not what I want.
Today, nearly 2 out of every 100 girls born are showing signs of sexual development at 3 years of age. You and your family will continue to become unhealthy and gain weight unless you embrace these new nutritional technologies. I can't change the world by myself. I need you to help me. Because what do I want to do? I want to create the legions of the well. Now that you know, what will you do?
And we want to bring to you, we want to bring to the world, number one, an awareness about the problem. Because there would be no point in even talking to you about any type of a protocol or a solution if you don't understand the magnitude of the problem. What if you didn't know what you think you know? And what if everything you thought you knew was wrong? And if we don't take control of our own health and someone else does, you might not like the outcome.